Will the Menendez brothers get out of prison? Welcome to Trevor's Tarot Astrology and Spirituality. First off, a huge thank you to all the new subscribers. Thank you to everybody who likes, watches, comments on the videos. Thank you if you promote the channel in any way whatsoever. Huge thank you. If you've given money to the channel, a very big thank you. Okay, so the Menendez brothers have been convicted of killing their parents, I think it was like 35 years ago, and were sentenced to life in prison. A judge recently ruled that they could be considered for a resentencing. And there's a possibility that the governor of California, Gavin Newsome, might also give them clemency, which would allow them to be released. Now, the brothers claimed in the trial that the reason they killed their parents is that their father was sexually abusing them, and they used that as a defense. The first trial, I believe, was a hung jury, and then the second trial turned out to be kind of a disaster for them, as some letters that were exchanged between one of the brothers and an outside person pretending to be a girlfriend became part of the evidence. So let's look at, first off, whether they actually killed, like, were they actually abused? Let's just ask that question. Now, there's some evidence to suggest that there was abuse. Really abused. I don't think there's much question that they were emotionally abused, but sexually abused. I see the devil card in the scrying bowl, so I think so. It's an abuse of power by their father. So we don't want to go too into details on this one. Yeah, that that's what led to it was a very dark cycle, and they ended it with the Ten of Swords. Now, the way they chose to end it up obviously is illegal, and that's why they were convicted of murder. Yeah, there were things that people couldn't see going on behind the scenes. The high priestess. Some people thought they were being illusionary and delusionary, but I do think this happened. Uh, they found ways to live with it, and yeah, the giving and receiving is at the center of the reading. Greediness, sometimes wish fulfillment in the environment around. Empathy, this is their mother. I think she knew about it. That's at least the way the Netflix documentary portrayed it. We get temperance in the environment around, and then we get judgment. That's a lot of major arcanas and some pretty big cards here. So they chose to end the dark cycle. What was the dark cycle? The dark cycle was being forced to do things, and they did that by passing their own judgment on it. Their mother was empathetic. She knew about it, but she was delusionary and illusionary about it, not really sure knowing what to do. That doesn't excuse it. That's just what's happened. In the environment around, there were things people didn't know that was going on. They didn't fully understand how strongly this affected them, how the greed and selfishness of the parents kept them from living a life of kind of moderation. So they were always in excess. But things have come to light since then. I think we understand these things a little bit better than 35 years ago. And we get the courts underneath as well. So this has garnered a lot of sympathy for them in the eyes of the public. and has questioned whether they should have been sentenced for the charge that they were sentenced for, if they should have been charged with a lesser charge that took into account these factors. So, yeah. Okay, so this rescheduling hearing, what do we need to know about this rescheduling hearing? Will they get a new sentence? I'm sorry, resentencing, not rescheduling. Will they get a new sentence? Sentence. So in the meantime, they've been taking meditation classes. They've been pretty model prisoners. I think one of them's married. They're now, I think one's like 57 and 54. So they're still relatively young in the sense that they'd still have, quite a bit of life left to live. They're just gonna, what do we need to know about the rescheduling? Or resentencing. I don't know why I keep saying rescheduling. Maybe it's going to get rescheduled. What do we need to know? Well, I mean, this is just kind of confirmation of the cards telling us that we're reading on the right topic. Certainly, the judge is going to talk about what they did with the death card. There's going to be some pretty passionate and fiery arguments being made by lawyers on both sides of this for them and for the prosecution. There's energy behind the scenes manifesting. It's a little bit dark. I think it's manifesting on their behalf, though. Kind of feels that way. It's definitely a turning point for their lives on whether they're going to stay in prison forever or for the rest of their lives, or whether they're going to get out. The center of the reading, we get the strength card. I think the question is do they have is the judge going to see this case as being strong enough, or the argument, it's not really a case, an argument for a resentencing, is that case strong enough to grant a resentencing? Get the card for reunions and celebrations and the environment around. They're very hopeful, but they do have a lot of anxiety, which makes perfect sense. We get the tower and the environment around, structures being torn down. And then we get walking away from things that don't serve us anymore with the Eight of Cups. So did the crime itself and the circumstances around it give the resentencing case the strength for there actually to be a resentencing? Or will the judge just find no and walk away from it and just let it be? They have a lot of anxiety. They think their case is strong enough, and they're working behind the scenes, kind of working the media a little bit as well as other things. And the environment around this is a huge crossroads for them. Expect a lot of fiery arguments on both sides. For the prosecution, arguing, you can't just go around and murder people. And the defense arguing, yes, but there were all these other circumstances that should have been considered. There's going to be some fear that this would set a precedent and tear down some existing judicial decisions. And then there's also concerns about families and reunions, not just them and their family, but also the extended family of their parents. They definitely have enough circles of support around money. Feels a little illusionary, delusionary. Question is, are they the victor or are they the wounded in battle person? I not quite sure. And we get the sun card, full illumination of the facts. We get movement, abuse of power. If I had to guess, I don't think the judge is going to grant this resentencing. That's what it feels like. Now, I can be wrong, and I haven't spent an inordinate amount of time focusing on this. So, the other possibility is that the governor gets them a pardon or grants them clemency. Will Gavin Newsome grant them clemency? I don't think so. At least not yet. I think he's too concerned about what it means for him politically if he runs for president. Things shouldn't work that way, right? That's not how the system's supposed to work, but I do think that's what he's thinking. Yeah, the King of Wands, leadership, passion, worried about money, the presence of death. Worried about what this says about or what message this sends to mothers and families. The greedy merchant card or wish fulfillment, the environment around. Lots of sleepless nights. He's thinking about it. I don't think he's made his mind up yet. He feels like he might be left out in the cold with the Five of Pentacles and the environment around. Illusion, delusion, worried about what other people are going to think of it. Again, I don't think that's how the system's supposed to work, but that's what's going on. He's afraid this might push him over a cliff as far as his political career and ambitions. And he's worried about what the current president of the United States might say about it, the King of Pentacles. So, yeah, I mean, the key is card here is that he's thinking about it, but he's worried the environment around about how it's going to be perceived by others. Is it going to be perceived as a politically advantageous move? For example, if he does it, is it going to be seen in a positive light? Is it going to be seen in a negative light? Republicans will argue that it's, siding with criminals. So I just don't know. Partnerships, firing new leaderships, crossroads again. I don't think anything is set in stone as far as this case goes on what's going to happen, but uh, my just kind of gut feeling says they might get out before their life sentence, but I don't think it's going to be soon. Like Newsome might grant them clemency. Well, no, he'd have to grant them before he could run for president because his term's up in 2026, right? His governorship. So, but the next governor could grant them clemency too. I don't know. I don't. I don't think so. I can be right, I can be wrong. Um, I'm right more than I'm wrong, but I don't know. I'm kind of wavering. 75% of me says they're not going to get out. 25% says, well, maybe. But I don't know why that is. I think a lot of people feel they have a very strong argument, but you know, the law's the law, and the judge is going to interpret the law the way the law is supposed to be interpreted in their eyes. And whether there's enough wiggle room there, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it. So anyhow, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming months on this case. All right, thanks for watching. I'll be back with another video soon.